Everyone? We got UFC 297 this weekend, and I'm finally going to break down this card from a Draftkings DFS perspective, mainly a tournament and GPP perspective. I wanted to do this on Monday, but there was a lot of the prop markets were not out for some of these fights, which was really, really weird. But now all of them are out, and I can, give you guys, what I think are the good plays and what I'm going to be doing and all that good stuff. So, yeah, let's get right into it, I guess. So, we got Jimmy Flick and Malcolm Gordon first up, 1.5 round line. Uh, Two guys that are really not trustworthy. And I'll tell you what, if you listen to a lot of the analysis out there on YouTube and Twitter and everything, they'll say this is a 50-50 fight, this and that. But the reality is the line is what it is. Malcolm Gordon is a pretty moderate favorite at minus 220. There's a lot that goes into these lines. And when you're playing DFS, you have to respect that. So Malcolm Gordon at minus 220. Okay. And 8.3K is just an elite play. There's no other way to say it. Minus 150 IT. I mean, yeah. So Malcolm Gordon is really good play on paper, and you kind of have to accept that. And then Jimmy Flick, I was expecting his ITD line to be a lot better, but at plus 300 at 7.9K, even with the leverage you might be getting against Gordon, it's just not that good of a play. It's kind of a fade to be honest with you. So if you want to insert your own opinion on this fight and just that it's 50-50 and someone's getting finished, then I would play a lot of Jimmy Flick. If you really believe that, and you're right about that, you're going to gain a lot of leverage if Jimmy Flick does win, in the first round or early second round. But just on the metrics, it's Gordon or pass. Then we got Jasmine versus Cachoeira, and we got Jasmine, the most expensive fighter on the slate, and just doesn't really show that kind of upside. I mean, 105, even at 105 at 9,500 that's probably not good enough. And I mean, yeah, plus 200 ITD is horrible as well for this price. Cashware on the other side, 6.7K. I mean, we've seen a lot. I've seen a lot worse 6.7K fighters than Priscilla Cachoeira, and her win condition is like landing a lot of volume on the feet and winning a striking match or a knockout, pretty much. So I think in 150 as a punt type of play, Priscilla's definitely in play. I'm not going to do it personally, but she's fine. She's a fine play. And then Jasmine, I just don't think has shown the kind of upside at this price, and with the lack of there being a good ITD line as well, I just don't see it happening for her. So she's gonna have to be a fade at this price. And then we got Sam Patterson, Johan. And I'll tell you what, this is a fight that you're probably gonna want to be on both sides. Johan, minus 110 at 8.4K. It's really, really good stuff. And then Sam Patterson, plus like 180 ish. And his win condition is more than likely going to be a takedown and a submission. So, yeah, I think both sides of this fight are really strong, but especially Sam Patterson. And I'll tell you why. Because, number one, I think a lot of people are, sold on the fact that he has no chin and is going to get knocked out here. But all of that outside stuff aside, Johan is going to be rating this a really strong play with this inside the distance line at his price. And so in MMA DFS, and this is something I learned from Eric Haber, aka Sheets, over at Sure DFS. And the idea is if someone's a really good play in MMA, you always want to see if the other side is just an okay play. And if that's the case, then the other side is actually, the best play. Um, and this is a case where we have both of them are really good. And I think Johan is going to be extremely highly owned. And so if obviously look at ownership on Friday, but if that's the case, then Sam Patterson is a really strong leverage play in my opinion. So yeah, I think both sides of this fight are really good. It's kind of similar to like the Tom Nolan and Nicholas Mata fight last night. Nicholas Mata was the key to how I got the optimal lineup last week, is because Tom Nolan, when I went through it, was like, oh wow, this guy's an elite play. And then Nicholas Mata was like, okay, he's a good play on the other side. And for some reason, Nicholas Mata was only like 15% owned, which in my opinion was criminal. And yeah, that's what made him the key to that slate, I believe. And so Sam Patterson kind of fits that same bill. Polyana Viana, Jillian Robertson. We're looking for about -110 for Robertson. She's about there. She has a grappling upside, so I guess she's fine. And she has, decent line value as well. So and then Viana plus 400. Okay, once again, what I'll say about this is we've seen worse, uh, low 7K fighters than this. I mean, plus 250 is not horrible, and plus 400 is not amazing, but I do think in 150, both sides of this are fine. But for me personally, it's going to be Robertson or pass. But yeah, just with the lack of the good underdogs that I've seen on the slate, I think that just with the variance that women's MMA tends to carry, I do think that going with both of these, Priscilla and Viana is not the worst thing in the world if you're looking for underdogs on a slate that doesn't really have that many good underdogs. So 150, I think you could play both of them, but I'm personally not going to do that. I want to be clear, I'm not doing that. But it's not the worst idea. Then we got Tavares versus CD, and I'll tell you right now, Tavares is easily the best. Maybe the best play overall, but definitely the best underdog. 7.3K. You're looking for like plus 325 ITD, and he's plus 200, which is really strong. Not to mention he's plus 150 to win the fight, which is pretty good alone for that price. So yeah, Tavares is really strong. And then I think on a normal slate, CD is, not that great. I mean, he's like plus 150. You're usually looking for like plus 110 at this price. But as we go through it, you'll see there's such a lack of good plays in this kind of, high 8K range that I do think CD is actually viable as well. So I think both sides of this fight are good. And then we got Sean Woodson versus Charles Durant. They took away the prop markets for some reason, but they're open on other books, and I know what they are. So it's Woodson is basically non-existent. He's like plus 600 ITD, and Jourdain is like plus 200, both of which are not good for their respective prices. So I think this fight is kind of a dud in tournament play. It just seems like it's going to be a striking, boxing, maybe kickboxing match on the outside for 15 minutes. And it's hard to see either one of these guys rating to be a really good play. Now what I have heard is that Woodson is a good underdog, and he has, a really big reach advantage, and he might be able to just win on the outside for a decision. So I guess if you're looking for a low priced underdog in cash games, maybe take a look at Woodson. But in GPP, I just think both sides of this are a pass. Then we got Armfield and Katona. Just another fight that doesn't really look that great on the metrics. You got, plus 230 for Katona at this price is just not good at all. And then you got Armfield plus 500 or so, which is not good at all either. Then you have Katona, who might have a bit of takedown upside, maybe like 2 takedowns of upside. And Armfield is kind of a pure boxer. And so this fight, the easy answer is that it's a fade. Now I have heard a lot of steam for the Armfield side from a lot of people I do respect. So if I'm playing 150 and I decide I'm not going to play the Viana or Cachoeira, and I really need underdogs in my lineup, I might get some exposure to Armfield. But based on purely the metric, which is what I usually try to stick to, is just the metrics. Armfield does not look good, but I will probably get a little bit of exposure to him just because of I've seen a lot of people I respect picking him to win, and not only win but win by finish. So I might get a little bit of exposure there, but I don't necessarily recommend it. But once again, this slate is not really ripe for good underdogs, so keep that in mind. And then we got Arnold Allen versus Evloev. Okay. Evloev is good to, he's just obviously a good play, okay? He has decent amount of volume for strikes, a ton of takedowns. He's putting up 120 plus in his decision wins, which is just insane. Line value about fine. And so at 8.7K, I mean, he's just going to rate to be a really strong play. So in that case, we got to take a look at Arnold Allen and see if he's even an okay play. And the truth is, he really isn't. I mean, he's plus 400 ITD, which is just not that good. So on paper, it's Evloev or pass, to be honest. And I do think I have heard a lot of steam for Arnold Allen as an underdog this week. So if that has any indication on ownership, then it's even more of a Evloev or pass for me. If in fact Arnold Allen does get a lot of ownership. Then we got Curtis versus Marc-Andre Barriault. Again, just another fight that rates to be kind of a dud on paper. Chris Curtis at 8.5K plus 250. It's really not great. Marc-Andre plus 300 at 7.7K. But I will say, I think that this is a fight that I'd rather play this Chris Curtis fight probably than the Katona fight or the Woodson and Jourdain fight. I do think it's just both of these guys really go after it. They're pretty much pure boxers, and I think we could see a lot of strikes, or someone could just get put away. They're both throwing down, and one of them gets knocked out. So although the metrics are saying that it's not a good fight, just like a lot of these other fights, you can't just fade every fight. You got to start to look at the context of the slate and figure out, if all of them are kind of bad, which one is the least bad. And I think that this Chris Curtis fight is the least bad of the bad. So yeah, I think actually both sides of this are pretty good, despite what the pure metrics might say. Magny versus Malott. Mike Malott is kind of like the safest play on the board. He has good line value. He has the highest finish odds on the entire slate. He has grappling upside. He just kind of rates to be, the safest play on the slate. He has a good floor as well. Neil Magny doesn't get a finish that often. So I think for cash, Mike Malott is like extremely strong, especially in GPP as well. So he's kind of just a good play for all contest types. And Neil Magny, he just does not score well, even if he does win at 6.9K. He just does not score well in his wins at all. So I think Neil Magny is just an easy fade. And Mike Malai is going to be a good play as long as you can get to him, because like I said, there's not a lot of great underdogs. So if you can find a way to get to Malai, then he's definitely someone you want in your lineups. Then we got the women's title fight, Pennington versus Bueno Silva. Pretty close fight on the odds, and the DraftKings prices indicate the same thing. Bueno Silva at 8.6K. I mean, maybe like plus 150 ITD, and she's like plus 130. So that seems really good, okay? But the thing is, this is a 5-round fight. So this ITD, is spread across 5 rounds. So if she's losing for like 4 rounds and gets a guillotine in the 4th round, it's probably not going to score that well. Okay? And she isn't someone that, really rates to score well in a decision win. So the Bueno Silva side, you're just kind of gambling on when this finish, if she does get a finish, like when it's going to occur. Okay? That's one thing to keep in mind. And I think actually in DFS, the Pennington side is the better side, because she's not a finisher, okay? And because of that, she'll be the one that benefits from the extra 2 rounds. So in DFS, I think Pennington is actually the stronger play, because number one, she's at 7.6K. And assuming that Bueno Silva and Pennington score roughly similar in their decision wins, the $1,000 cheaper Pennington is going to be a better play. So you can see, right? She's at like about 70 points in her decision win. So 70 points across 3 rounds. So if she has 5 rounds, that's 116 points, So I think that Pennington is actually, long story short, what I'm trying to say is Pennington is the better DFS play. But I think it's hard to avoid Bueno Silva, because if she does happen to get that early finish, you're gonna need her in your lineup. So I do like the Pennington side better, and I do think there's a case to fade the Bueno Silva side if you have, the guts to do it. But if I'm giving just, blanket advice, just take both sides of this fight in DFS. But Pennington side definitely is a bit better in my opinion. Then we got DDP versus Sean Strickland. Even more money coming in on Dricus throughout the week. Wow. Yeah, Sean started off this week as like minus 140. He's now down to pretty much pick him. So there's a lot of Dricus love coming in the betting market. Both guys rate to finish the fight, and I just think no matter how this fight goes, it's going to be a fantasy point monster, especially at this price, the 8.2K price range. I think both sides are really good. Dricus has the takedown upside and the finish upside, allegedly, and Strickland has the volume upside and like more of the late finish and decision upside as well. So I think no matter what, either of these guys can score well in their wins, and so it's a really really strong fight for getting both sides in DraftKings. So that's gonna be it. Weird slate this week. You got a lot of fights that are really rate to be duds. So it's gonna be about choosing, maybe one or two of those dud fighters that you think have a better chance than the odds suggest. That and slash or monitoring ownership, because ownership is going to guide a lot of those decisions when there's not really many good fights to choose from. So to go over it again, I think Malcolm Gordon is an elite play. Uh, Jasmine is a fade. Cachoeira is like fringy, but I'm not going to do it. Patterson and Johan are both really good plays. Viana again, fringy. I'm not going to do it, but and then Robertson is like fine. Tavares elite play. CD is a good play. Jourdain fight probably a fade. This fight probably a fade, but I might get a tiny bit of arm field exposure. Then we got Evelev is a good play. Allen's probably a pass. Both sides of this fight are fine. And then we got Mullah is a good play. Magny's a fade. Pennington's a good play. Bueno Silva is fine. And then both sides of the main event, are good plays. So that's going to do it. Hope this helps a bit. And yeah, I think that'll be it this week. I don't think I'm going to make a video tomorrow. I'll make a community post with my final pool, maybe, but that's about it. Best of luck this week, guys. And, hopefully this will be a good card with some good fights, and hopefully we'll make some money. I'll see you guys in the next one.